Hello everybody, Keith here again. I'm going to do something which could be one of the most boring videos I'll ever make, or it could be interesting. I've absolutely no idea what I'm doing, except that this is my Dendrobium jenkinsii. It came as a cutting from Zana wrapper, and I put it on a moss mat onto a bed of bark in a pot, just because I didn't know anything else. I hadn't got a mount or anything to try it on. When it outgrew that, I put it on this piece of cork bark, and it's not done too badly, but I've noticed that the oldest moss, which is some of this, is now developing something of a crust. And I've found, although I haven't got an enormous experience of using moss, or just moss, but I've found that moss has a habit, once it develops this crust, which I think has possibly got something to do with the algae that starts to grow onto it like this here. It doesn't hydrate very well, and you can end up with parts of it very wet and parts of it completely dry, and it just doesn't distribute the moisture very well. More to the point, the oldest moss was put on in April 2020, and it's now September 2021. So from what people have said about my Gomesa, which I bought a couple of weeks ago at the Welsh Orchid Society, Welsh Orchid Festival I mean, and what have you, that after about 6 months pure moss can get rather manky. Now it doesn't appear to be damaging the roots, but what I'm going to do now is use my tweezers to try and take off as much of this as I can, like that, without disturbing the plant any more than I've absolutely got to. I'm just trying to ease the bits out if they're not going to come without causing a lot of damage, or I'm going to start ripping roots to shreds or anything like that. Not sure where we go from there. Now that's hanging on, so it may mean that I've either got a root in there, which I don't think I know, that was just a piece of moss that had got trapped. So far the roots I've managed to expose haven't done too bad. I don't think this moss is as bad as I feared, but that isn't really saying very much. With the new stuff, such as I'm just fiddling about with at the moment, I took a leaf out of Roger Frampton's book and put it on top to make it easier to replace as and when the time came. But the other, that's interesting, down underneath it's still quite damp. Not wet, but damp. So that's interesting. That's telling me that it's actually working better than I thought it was. But we have got what are new roots. There's one in there which has got a green tip on. Where are we? Got a green tip on just there, and that has grown right under the moss, and is attached to the bark, unless I'm very much mistaken. So as I say, I'm just trying to tease the moss out as best I can. I don't want to upset the plant any more than I can possibly help, because obviously you want it to attach and do its thing naturally. And I've got some moss that's already moist, and it's left over from some other work I've done with moss before. So it's nice and moist, it's all at room temperature and all the rest of it. So hopefully I shan't have too much trouble getting to this. The problem is going to come now, because I've got to get into this older moss and try and get rid of that, and this is underneath, as you can see from these bits that are coming out now. Don't seem to be any roots there, but I did notice when I moved it from the original setup to this one that the root had gone through the moss and down into the bark chips. So I think it appreciates the moisture, but it probably doesn't need as much as it was getting. And I've got one quite dehydrated pseudo cane, whatever it is, on this one than I've got before. Now it's possible I really ought to have got all this moss out when I moved it, but as I said, I didn't want to risk disturbing it when it was doing okay. But it would appear that it might have been better to have at least got rid of some of it. But nevertheless, we've got a number of roots with tips. Not ever such a lot, but we've got roots with tips. Now this is, yeah, that's quite loose. So let's stop messing about then. I'll take these straps off, and if it makes it any easier to deal with, so much the better. I can soon put them back if I have to. Right. Let me just ease these out of the way. Now, we've got some new growths, but you can see that some of the roots are going down onto the bark. So I'm going to get rid of as much of this moss under here as I can. We've got a new growth just there. So if I get rid of the vast majority of this moss and then ease it back and just gently tie it down, and I'll put some moss over it. I think that's got most of it. So I think what I'm going to do now is strap it down like that. Get these roots as close to the bark as I can get them. Strap it down, put a small amount of moss in to give it a bit of a reservoir. Do I need to take any of these off? Yeah, that's not very good. I'll take that little one off at the bottom. Don't think that's doing any good. There's no roots or anything anywhere near it, so I'll take that one off. But we need some cinnamon. Get a bit of cinnamon on that. There we go. Right. So I think this is possibly in a rather healthier position than I thought it might be. The moss, as I half suspected, was not brilliantly hydrated, but it hasn't been used, hasn't been watered for a couple of 3 days now, and it has been fairly warm in here. But I'm just thinking, if I tie this down, so just one piece of this wire, it's not very sightly, that's the opposite of unsightly, but having said that, it's better than nothing. And more to the point, it's the only thing I've got. Right, so if I took some moss just around some of these roots, and then see if that needs to be strapped down. As I've got some in a bag, it's been prepped for some of the work I've done using moss. But the thing is, now it will be just like that on top of the mount. I've got it like this on my, Tolumnia huxiana. It's not under the plant or around the plant, it's just there to act as a little bit of a moisture reservoir to give it the chance to not dry out really quick, but still drying out. So I'm not going to use as much moss as was on it before. Just going to put a little bit here and there, and hopefully it can find that, and we'll do okay. Move that leaf, that's better. But I think at that, that'll be great. There's no need to strap it down any tighter. I hope that's been of interest. It's been a curious one for me, because to say I didn't know what I was doing is the understatement of 2021. I don't do mounts, they're too much trouble. I've got this one, the gameter I bought the other day in my Tulumnia Hawksiana. I can cope with those. If I do go away, I've got ways and means of keeping them humid so they don't dry out, so I can go away for around a week if I have to. But by and large, they're a lot of trouble. So anyway, I found that interesting. I hope you did as well. It's always nice to see what's going on. It's not quite in the pot, is it? But you know what I mean. That's been on there. I'll have to look it up. There is a video of me putting it on this probably about 6 months ago, I should think. If you want to look it up, I'll try and find it and put a link in the description. But I think now that's going to be easy for me to maintain because the moss, as you saw, is just on top of everything. We've got some nice plump new pseudo bulbs, so hopefully the next time it tries to flower, we won't have any trouble. We've got a new growth coming in from underneath, so hopefully I won't stall it too much with the disturbance I've given it today. So that's everything. Thank you for watching. As I found it interesting and a bit curious. I hope you have as well, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.